Seth Ruhling, welcome to the show, bro.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
It's a long time coming. I've been sort of like, thinking about this for a long time. Like, just there's always glimmers of like, oh, I want to have that person on the show. And then eventually, like, it always happens at the right time. And this definitely feels like the right time to me.
It's great. I haven't been on a Zoom meeting with you since the North Face days.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that was a while ago now. Yeah, now look at you, man. You're the star of the team now. Come on, I'm a washed up has-been.
No.
Yeah, dude, we have so much to cover here. Maybe just to kick things off, it's been 2 weeks since your spectacular victory at Black Canyon. How's the mind and body after a career-defining performance?
Yeah, the mind is great. Like, obviously, like I think you and a lot of people, like anytime you have a success or something that you're like to go your way after you've been working for it for a while, like you feel, or for me, I feel very relaxed and like kind of at peace after it, because like there was a lot going into that race for my, like from a mental standpoint for me. Like I had such a bad running season in 2024. So I feel like to like kind of knock one out of the park on my first at bat was like very relieving. Kind of like, oh, I still got it. But yeah, I mean, it's 2 weeks on, it's like I've had the moment to like enjoy it, and I'm like ready to start training again. Like I think it's so funny that like every time I'm training for a race, like before the race, I'm like, oh man, I'm so ready for the training to be done.
Yeah.
Like I'm mentally over it. And then you get to the start line, you do the thing, and like immediately after it's like, oh, what's next?
Yeah.
But and then the body's like been having a rough go. I've been sick. I was sick for like a week. Still have a cough. Like been sleeping terribly, but coming around.
It's your spirit telling you, hey, dude, you got 4 months till Western States. Take a little rest now, and
100%.
You can get back to work here soon.
100%. Cool. Well, go for it.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say congratulations. It was awesome to just like be at the race and have a front row seat, chase you with a camera a little bit. And you had all your boys there, and, just seemed like it was a special moment for all you guys and for our audience here. And I'm sure, they gather this from your podcast too, but the Boulder Boys are golden ticket kings, man. And you were sort of the last one who needed to acquire one, and you did so successfully at Black Canyon and in spectacular fashion. So we'll talk all about the race here later on in the show, and obviously look ahead towards Western States. But I'm sure our audience will want you to answer our traditional opening question here, Seth. So before we go too far, tell me what makes you you.
Man, I actually find that type of question very difficult to answer, because like I'm not somebody who thinks like I'm particularly special from anybody else. You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh man, what makes me me? I don't know. I feel like I'm sure a lot of people are like this, but I feel like I'm just like somebody who likes to have fun, but also like is very motivated and driven by like, things that like I find important, but that are probably like actually very trivial things, like running, for instance, or like something like I can get pretty motivated by like, or like the podcast that we started. Like I can be kind of like fixated on something and like really, I guess like I'm probably like a highly motivated person at times. Yeah. And then like in a lot of ways, like a very lazy person at other times. So maybe I'm like, what makes me me is like, I have a lot of like opposites going on in my life, maybe.
That's interesting, because I talked to all your boys before we set up this recording, and that was kind of a common theme too, is that like you're equal parts chill and aggressive.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Yeah, I feel like that's accurate. I'm glad they notice that as well. I feel like that's very accurate. I'm either like I'm very motivated, or like I'm trying to take a nap,
It's good to have balance in life.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a funny conversation that I had with Adam Mary about you like a year and a half ago, something like that. It was after CCC 2023 where you finished 6th place. And I was like, man, Seth must be pumped with that performance. And Adam said to me, no, dude, he's pissed. I said, what? Are you serious? He said, the kid's got the heart of a champion, bro. I remember it distinctly. That's exactly how he put it. So maybe this is a perfect place to start. Maybe we could point our gaze back towards CCC 2023. If you were to diagnose or grade your performance there, like what were you disappointed about and why? Because for a lot of people, that would feel like a big breakthrough.
Yeah. I mean, that race particularly, like I'm not always upset with 6th place, like if I were to have and I haven't really had this experience too much, but if I were to have a 6th place where I was like, oh, that was my max, like that was the most I could have done on the day, I'd be like, I got to get better, but that's fine. But the thing with CCC that year is like, it was like during the race as I'm like falling from like 3rd or something to 6th and then like almost catching 5th place, which is Drew on the day. And like, I was like, I could see like my head was like, oh, I can see how I should be on the podium right now. Like it was like through the race, like 6th was great, but it was like, I should have been able to be where I think Dakota was 3rd. I was like, I could have, if I had like done a few things differently, like maybe not set the fastest time up that first climb, like maybe I could have actually just gotten 3rd and that would have been like a huge accomplishment. Like I think that's where it comes from, is like knowing, like I've been doing sport and stuff for so long that like, I feel like I know when like I had a good race by like I maxed out my potential on the day. And the thing that frustrated me so much about CCC after the fact was like, I like bobbled, I messed up so bad that like I like pretty much like the way I viewed it was like I gave up a podium.
Right.
Because I was like, honestly, I was probably like insecure because I hadn't really raced much that year.
Yeah, but insecure maybe is not the right word, because an insecure person wouldn't set the KOM on that first climb at CCC. Yeah. So, I mean, it says something about you and about your style that you would have the courage to lead the race out in the way that you did. Maybe talk about that moment, the mix between belief and doubt. And it sounds like you think that was probably not the right thing to do in hindsight.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it wasn't the right thing to do. Like, I think, well, that was coming off so that summer, like 2 months before, I'd had a little, like a bout of pericarditis.
Right.
So I like couldn't run, and like the kind of was touch and go whether I was going to be able to like actually train for CCC. So I think when I got to the start line, I was just like I didn't know what I had, like fitness wise, because I hadn't raced in forever. Like I was like probably severely undertrained. And I was like, man, like the quickest way to find out what you have is to just like send it from the start. Yeah. And like, and I think in a lot of ways I was like stoked because like, oh wow, like I'm climbing really well. And like, I'm at the front of this race. But on the flip side of that, like, I think, I think we saw it, or I dropped out this past year, but the first little bit, like I didn't lead the first climb, and like I worked my way up to the top 3, like a little later in the race. And
yep.
I think that's the difference between like the confidence and maybe the insecurity is like, I didn't know, like the one thing about trail running or ultra racing specifically that I've always had a hard time with is like, I'm not one of those people that's going to like start a race and be like, I'm going to be conservative and find out what it's like later. Like, I'm always like, I want to know like as soon as possible where everybody is. And the easiest way to do that is to be at the front. And so like, and that does come from like a little insecurity, but also to sort of what you're saying, like that style of running is probably like very representative of like my how I view like racing and stuff. Is like I just want to like be competing, and if I'm not competing, like I'm probably like I'm not going to be having so much fun, I think. So
it's so fun to talk about. So I'm cognizant of the fact that our listeners will probably want to have some personal context set. We'll come back to talk about your training and racing career here in a little bit. But maybe first, I know you're from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and that you didn't move to Boulder till you were in your mid 20s, something like that. So maybe just start there, like the significance of place, how being from Chattanooga and spending most of your life has shaped you.
Oh man, Chattanooga is great. Like I grew up there. Like I was born outside of Chattanooga, like a suburb town of Chattanooga. And I lived there, first 25 years of my life. So it's like who I am is like really based around that little like pocket in the Southeast. And like, it's just Chattanooga is so cool. Like, I don't think people who haven't been understand how cool like a really southern town can be from like an outdoor standpoint. Like growing up, like, it was like every weekend we're like going hiking. Like I lived in a town where there was a private university, and the university had like 35 miles of trails on campus. And it was like, we're hiking all the time. Like we're outdoors all the time. Like my dad and his buddies would go like climb mountains out west like once or twice a year. So I was kind of like surrounded by kind of that like outdoors, activity mountain type thing. But yeah, like the support from the Chattanooga running community is like crazy. Like if you, like, I know you were kind of out there at Black Canyon, but from what people have told me, like if you were watching the live stream from Black Canyon a couple weeks ago, like the chat was like full of people from Chattanooga just being like, he's a it was like Chattanooga boy, like
let's go.
So yeah, a lot of like fans. And like I worked at the running store there like in college, and I don't know, like it's such a cool, like Boulder's very like, moving to Boulder's very like intense for athletics, right?
Yeah. That's where I grew up. I grew up in Boulder.
Yeah. So like you probably experience this like as you're getting into it, but it's like pretty intense, like you're getting like, if you're on a bad day, you're getting your doors blown off by somebody you don't know, on a local trail. But Chattanooga had this like very chill vibe to it. So it was like a really good place, I think, to kind of like dabble with different sports. Like I was a runner, and then I did triathlon for a little bit, and it was just a good place for that people like, kind of like just always kind of supported me and like hyped me up, probably more than I should be, like in a small town. But yeah, and then like it was sad to leave at the time, but by the time I like became a pro trail runner and got sponsored, it was like, I think I had 1 year where I lived in Chattanooga. It was the COVID year, and I came out here, like did Pikes Peak, where they like had people go like one by one every 15 seconds.
Right.
And I died. I like couldn't do the altitude, and I was like, I gotta move. I gotta move to Colorado. So that was the precipitating circumstance to motivate the move out west. Yeah. There was a lot of different factors. Like I'd always kind of wanted to live in Boulder from like the cyclists and stuff that I was fans of as a kid. Yeah. But that was like the impetus of like, okay, like if I'm going to be a professional trail runner, I should probably optimize my location. And like, to be fair, guys these days are like coming from the East Coast, like the dude who got second at Black Canyon a couple weeks ago.
My dude, Will Murray.
It's like
kid
from New Jersey, like couldn't find a more, like that feels like one of the more random places somebody could be from, and like run the second fastest time ever at Black Canyon. So
I want to ask you about the dynamic in that pack here when we get to talking about Black Canyon. Yeah, it's funny, it's when I was talking to Adam about you too. That JFK performance in 2019 was the thing that really like put you on the map. I want to talk about that maybe in a second. But before we do, I was revisiting your results, and it was like, oh, maybe Seth like ran a couple ultras when you were like in your early 20s. It was like 2010 or something, 2011. And so anyway, I wanted to ask you about that, because then there was this massive hiatus where you didn't participate in races, or at least they weren't cataloged in the result databases. So, like what was going on in your life when you did those first couple ultras and those early years, and why the major window of non-participation? I guess that was the triathlon time.
Well, no, that ultra time was actually sophomore and junior year of high school, I did my first two 40-mile. Well, so like there's this 40-mile, the one, I think it's the first result I have from on Ultra Sign Up, and it's Pine Mountain 40. And my buddy on the cross country team in high school was like, dude, I found this trail race. It's sick. Like if you finish the race, they give you a hoodie and it has like 40-mile trail run finisher. He was like, how cool would that be to wear that around school? And I was like, I mean, like, I'm pretty easily like, if my friends are like, let's go do something like kind of crazy, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do it. And so, yeah, like 16 years old, my dad drives us down we camp at this campground, like run this 40-mile race. And like, I like wasn't racing it. Like we were like jogging it. I was wearing like running shoes, my like high school singlet, short shorts, like, and just like stopping at every aid station, eating like grilled cheese and stuff.
Yeah.
And we finished the race. Actually, my friend dropped out. He like got really injured. I finished the race, got my hoodie, and it like shrunk in the dryer the next day and like was unwearable.
Oh no, tragedy.
I know. Didn't even get to wear it around school. But then the next year, another friend of mine was like, I saw you did that race. Let's do it again. And then the hiatus was actually because I got connected with like a running coach that knew better and was like, if you're trying to like race the mile in high school, you probably don't need to be out here doing 40-mile trail races. So the hiatus was like, honestly, the hiatus, for the last, like the Pine Mountain 40, the second time I did it, and the break until like 2019 was probably like actually where I started training seriously for sports, So
makes sense.
Exactly.
Well, as a hoodie appreciator myself, I feel for you in the unfortunate shrinking that can occur in the drying machines. And I feel sorry that it probably meaningfully depreciated your popularity in the high school. Otherwise, it would have been like obnoxious how cool Seth Ruhling would be walking through the hallway.
Oh man. Yeah. Well, it turns out like doing well in cross country also was probably more important to everybody else.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So let's talk about JFK. You and I had dinner immediately after your Black Canyon win with all the Boulder Boys, some of your friends, Thrower. And you made a comment about how I think you said that you wanted to run JFK because Jim did it. So I wanted to ask you about that. Say more about that. In what ways were you influenced by Jim and his career?
I think Jim, like for my era of coming up in just like my age group and everything, I think Jim was like one of those guys that he resonated with me a lot coming from track and cross country. I think, like I said, I was growing up doing outside stuff. We got outside magazines and there was like Anton and Scott Jurek and these things. And like, I was like, oh, that's really cool. But like, I don't feel like I can relate to that so much. Mm-hmm. And so, Jim, like that 2018, 2019, just like seeing a dude that like honestly was like a purely like, track guy at one point. Doing these trail races was so, I think he did a lot for at least my age group of trail runners. And like JFK was one of these things where it was like, well, he set a fast time there and that's like Jim Walmsley. And so like, and that's another instance of a friend of mine in college was like, I'm doing this. You want to do it? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And just like having Jim as like a benchmark there. And it was an East Coast race. Like at the time, I think that might've been the only, cause there was an ultra race of champions at the time, but I think that was starting to get a little watered down. So in 2019, it was like in the East Coast, the only race that I could test myself against other very good or like pro trail runners was JFK.
Yeah.
And it was a course that like the time, like what time you run there is like pretty important. So that was why. I mean, it was, I was very inspired by Jim, like getting into trail running. And then,
It's funny because in talking to your buddies leading up to this conversation, at least a couple of them just like make comments about your stride, you know, like you are a pure runner. And Jim has the same thing where you guys are both just these like super graceful, bouncy athletes in the way that like, you know, a lot of outdoor mountain first runners aren't. Mm-hmm. Is there anything there that's be fun to talk about?
No, I don't know. Like, the stride.
Please discuss the beauty of your strides.
Oh man, I don't know where it came from, but it's actually like, it is like, I appreciate all the love for my stride on the internet and from my friends. And like, I do think there's something to like having a bouncy stride, like, as being like sort of like a road running or track background. Like, I don't know, you look at a lot of the Kenyans, it's like, they're very smooth, but they like run with like a cadence of that's bouncy in their own way. And I just feel like for me, it's like, I thrive off of like, I always call it rhythm running, where it's just like, you're just like, every step's kind of the same, which I think actually applies to running steep uphills as well. Getting in a rhythm.
I heard there's also the inside joke, don't let Seth get on the front on a climb. Because all of a sudden everybody's VO2 maxing uphill.
Oh my goodness. I mean, sometimes we got to be fair though. Drew and Matt and most of those guys are like, if they get on the front too, it's like, especially honestly, we don't talk about it, but if Matt is at the front of a training run going up a climb, it's like not going to be a good time for the rest of us. But no, the one thing I will say about my stride is like all through high school, it was actually like really annoying because people would be like, oh, you don't look like you pushed yourself very hard. Cause like my stride doesn't break. Like I just like start going slower, but my stride looks the same. And I'd always be like, no, like I promise I was like working really hard. I just didn't like have a grimace or whatever. So I don't know about the stride, but it feels like a thing that I'm known for now. Which is cool.
Cool. So coming back to JFK just for a second, I wondered if that moment was something that changed your orientation. You mentioned that it was almost like a dare from your friend or just like, hey, let's go out and do this thing. But obviously you wanted, and I'm sure you were taking a competitive attitude into the race. So in what ways did winning that race change the way you were thinking about, you know, how you were going to be approaching the sport and like how far you wanted to push it?
Yeah. I mean, that was like the moment, right? Like the spring 2019, I had like given up on pro triathlon. Like I had my elite card in triathlon, but it was like too much training. And so I was like, sweet, like I'm just going to be like a normal dude that like loves to run and ride his bike and just like go to work. And that's cool. And after winning JFK, I don't think I realized that it was going to get the kind of press it did. And then I was going to bed actually at the hotel we were staying at, and I get this DM on, it might have been Twitter. Like it was like some weird DM from Zach Miller. And he's like, hey man, like, do you have a sponsor? And I was like, no, like I don't have a sponsor. He's like, would you like to run? Like, do you think you would like to run for the North Face? And I was like, say less, man. Like that was like, that's like up there with the brands you want to run for. And and then like I ended up like, I think I was like up to like midnight DMing back and forth with Zach on Twitter. And 2 days later I had a phone call with my now athlete manager. So that was like in like the course of like winning JFK, and like a week later it was like, oh, like I'm like, I can be a pro athlete. That's unbelievable. Pretty cool. So yeah, it was like, it's the race that changed my life. And like, it's been so long, and I've like, kind of forgotten how like crazy that was. But yeah, it was,
I mean, it must have been cool. Surreal for you too, because I'm sure you had an awareness of who Zach Miller was and his significance to JFK, let alone the sport of trail running. I was just in New Zealand with Esther Kendall, your athlete manager at the North Face, and we were talking about you. And it reminds me too that you revealed to me at dinner after Black Canyon that you DM'd me about something like way back in the day.
Oh, so that was because in the middle of 2019, so this is like a few months before JFK, I did a 50K and I like ran a fast time. Like even looking back at it now, I was like, whoa, like that's pretty quick. And I remember DMing you because I was like, the North Face looks really cool. And you were like, you like had, the North Face, Red Bull. It was like just these like brands that I was like, whoa, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So I think I DM'd you and I was like, hey, like, do you think I got a shot? And I think you were like, yeah, like that's a great time. Like keep at it, which is so funny. Cause like now being in my position, people send me stuff like that. Like, you think I got a shot? And it's like obviously it's so hard to tell in trail. You're like, I don't know what the course was like, but yeah, I feel like I like passed that on. Like, I'm like, well, Devo gave me hope. So like, I'm going to give this kid some hope. So that's so funny.
Yeah. Now I'm like kicking myself that I didn't get to be the guy that identified Seth Ruhling for the North Face team.
Oh man. I mean,
yeah, it is good. That is going to be important for you. You're still in the prime of your career. And so is Zach, we should say, but it is important to kind of like help boost that next generation and give opportunities to others in the sport. And I think it says a lot about Zach's character too, because like at the end of the day, recruiting people to the same brand, you end up competing with those people for the budget that is allocated to the team. And so for him to have that selfless approach and just like identify, damn, kid ran a fast time at JFK, maybe he'd be a good teammate too. Shout out to Zach Miller for that.
Yeah, shout out to Zach. That's a good point. Yeah. It is very telling of like kind of who he is. So yeah.
Cool. All right, so I want to talk about the podcast later, but first I want to talk about the Boulder Boys, the collection of characters. When I had Adam on the show, I asked him to just kind of identify kind of the unique superpower of each of the boys on the squad. And I kind of want to just pose the same question to you because I think it would be fun. And it's been a couple of years now since Adam was on the show. And I'm sure the audience would just love to hear it from you too. So maybe take the core group and if you could identify what their secret sauce is that makes them special or what you've learned from each of them in your journey as a professional athlete, I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I think back a couple of years ago, I think it was like 4 of us. And I think we added like a 5th with the pod, So I think, I'll start with Drew. Drew's the first person I met here in Boulder. His like the thing I've learned from Drew the most is like his outlook on when things get hard. Like when things get hard in running, he's very positive, very focused. He troubleshoots. Like that dude has like the best mentality mid race, whether it's hot, whether he's suffering, whether he's puking, whether he's whatever, he's like he wills himself to a fast time or like to the finish. And I think, that's why I had him for the biggest and hardest part of Black Canyon. I had him pacing me there. And I think it's like, I feel like from him, that's like the biggest thing I've learned, like athletically, is like how important it is to like stay in it mentally.
Dude, before you move on, I just want to say this because it's important. Drew was one of the only people to finish UTMB last year too, when everybody dropped out of the race and he had a shit day and he still got through it. And I think it's a reflection of exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, 100%. And like, even in having a terrible day, it's like he ran a good time. Like, it wasn't like he like was like sleeping at the aid station. Like he was pushing as hard as he could,
Yeah.
And he was even like competing. Like I remember I think he barely got Jeff McGavro and he was like stoked, And it's like, what dude is like having the like one of those hard days out in the mountain and it's like, I got to pass one guy,
Yeah.
So it's, he's great.
Stud.
I feel like Matt is probably like the person I actually relate to the most from an athletic standpoint. Like me and him both love running. We both share this kind of like connection with running, and I think the other boys do too. But the way Matt talks about running and how like he's like, man, sometimes I hate it, but he's like, I wake up and I just like, it's like part of me now. He's like, this is what I'm doing. Like, and I think I really relate to that because I think a lot of like Adam and Drew and even Moy a little bit came into running like later in life. And so I feel like it's like to them, it's something they do and they're really good at and like has now become a part of who they are. But I think for Matt, and I mean, what I love about Matt is like he gets it. Like, he's like, oh, like, it doesn't matter like how much you're getting paid to do it. It doesn't matter like if you're having success. He's like, yeah, you're going to go out and train really hard because that's part of you now. You know, it's like what you do. So I love that about Matt. Like, you know, he's dealt with a lot of tough injuries and tough races really. And every day he's like, no, I'm like still going to run and train hard. And that's so cool. Yeah. And then Adam's like he's like the rock of the group, you know, holds everybody together. Yeah. Adam's just like from a running standpoint. I mean, these guys have taught me so much, like from a general life standpoint, but running standpoint, like Adam's, commitment level, like when he's committed, it's like, like he's, you know,
locked in, as they say.
Yo, he's so locked in, like weighing everything, making sure he's getting enough food, like making sure he's taking like the protein at the right time, getting X amount of sleep, like heart rate this, like it's like so dialed. And like for me, that was like the hardest curve for me to like, or the hardest hump to get over was like, I am very, like, I'm a pretty like free spirited runner sometimes. So it was very hard to like get dialed. And I think Adam like taught me a ton about how to like get locked in and like make the most of the opportunities you have. And then Moy is like such a good vibe. Like I met him after I met all these other people, and it's like, oh, we're like instant best buds, you know? So,
yeah, because he got like he was brought into the inner circle immediately. Like there's something special about him.
It's like he's just like like instantly everybody's like, oh yeah, like he's our best friend. Like, you know, like he's definitely a Boulder boy. He works so hard too, and like he has been in trail running for so long, so he has such a wealth of knowledge of European running. And so it's really cool to see him try to tackle the US running scene. And like, yeah, I think the things I've learned from him is just like trying to adapt and try to figure it out. And he's like very driven to sort of like, troubleshoot stuff. And it's fun. It's fun to watch, and it's inspiring like every day. So,
yeah. Dude, that was so fun. Thank you for entertaining me. And, you know, like of all the Boulder boys, I know you the least. And so, you know, like it's just fun to just like feel like I agree with everything that you're saying. But also, like, as I said, I talked to all your boys leading up to this conversation, and they obviously have a lot of amazing things to say about you, which actually maybe would be fun to get to now. Like, as we sort of start making our way towards talking about Black Canyon specifically, I was talking to Matt Daniels about you, and he said, yeah, like Seth just like chases competition, and that your orientation was like, okay, like all the big dogs are doing Western States this year. That means I need to do Western States this year. So just maybe talk about that, is like just your attitude and orientation, and just like that, the hunger to be in the mix, like with the stars of the sport.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like competition's the reason we do this. Like, I don't know. Like I think I've publicly been like pretty, against running Western States, like historically. Like I've been like when I went out and crewed Adam 2 years ago and he did it. Right. And I was like, no way. Like I'm never doing this. And I think 2 years ago it was like a cold year, and I was like, it's still very hot. Like I don't know. I'm not about this. Yeah. But yeah, like the competition and like seeing the guys that were lining up, and like kind of maybe the talk that's going on. Like there's a lot of like talk right now about times and who's doing what. And it's like, I don't know, like none of that really matters, but it's like, it's really the caliber of guys that are showing up. It's like, if the race goes 13:30 or if it goes 15:30, it's like, it's going to be a crazy competitive race. Like it's going to be huge, you know? And I like look at that, and it's like, that's what it's about. Like I feel like my career everybody's does. And my like running career has a timeline, and it's like, well, I want to find out how I stacked up to the best in the world, and like learn about that. And like Jim and Hayden and Adam Peterman and possibly Killian, like showing up to this is like, I want to be there. Like there's no other race. It never happens where all the big names are at one at one race at one time. And it's like, ooh, like if you beat one of them, that's huge, you know?
Yeah.
And if you get, you're like, if I go there and like get completely destroyed by all of them, it's like, cool, that was supposed to happen, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool. It's fun. Like it gets me excited.
Yeah. The other word that comes up when your boys talk about you is just fearlessness. And I think we sort of kind of touched on this with the CCC convo at the beginning, but it reminded me of something that Adam said about you. And just, he was contrasting his golden ticket performance from Canyons 2 years ago and your golden ticket from 2 weeks ago. And he was like, you know, I had to be tactical and restrained at Canyons to do it. And Seth is just the opposite. You know, he's like, yeah, he wants to be in the mix. But it also brings up just like, I don't know, you do have like a swag and a style to you. So I don't know if that opens any fun avenues of conversation just based on what Adam said about you and just the spirit of fearlessness.
Yeah. Well, I'm honored to be called or to say that I have swag by Dylan Bowman, because that's
Let's go, dude.
That's a high honor in the in the trail space, and honestly, probably any space. But yeah, I don't know if it's fearlessness more than like an acceptance of like, and maybe this is the fear. Like I definitely get like I'm definitely scared of races. Like, and to be honest, like I'm usually less scared about the competition, actually more just like the distance. I'm still like mentally adjusting to like 60 miles and then now I have to think about 100 miles, which is crazy. Yep. But I feel like the acceptance of like, if I'm like, okay, if I give my best and I work really hard and I never quite reach the top, and it's like, that was the best I had. And like at the end of my professional trail running career, whatever that looks like, so I feel like that can look vague at the end, but it's like, if I tried my best and I gave myself every opportunity to race against the best guys in the world and I never succeed, it's like, fine. Like I tried, I did what I could. And like, that's not what, like, beating people at races isn't really what life's about. And so I feel like it comes from just that acceptance and like, and also the like desire to want to have those opportunities. Like, there's something that resonated with me with a pro cyclist, and there's Ben Healy. He super fun to watch race bikes. And he like on a pod he did a couple years ago, maybe, he's just like, all I ask for is like opportunities to race.
Yeah.
And I was like, I feel like I resonate with that. Like all I ever want is like opportunities to like test myself against the best in the sport. And like, I think that can come across as fearless because I guess I'm like towards the front testing, like actively testing myself in these races. And it's like, I don't know if it's fearlessness or just like acceptance, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And really that's what it takes at this point too, is you kind of have to be in the fight early in order to have a chance to be in the fight late, at least the way things are trending. So let's talk about your training here quickly too. A bunch of your friends said that you had taken at least somewhat of a different approach in training recently. So maybe just bring us into the winter months leading into Black Canyon, like what specifically you were doing differently that maybe led to this big breakthrough.
Yeah, it's like different. It's like, it was just like a different hue of what a lot of different track and trail runners do. I feel like so the whole impetus of like me being like, I got to change something is I couldn't keep up with Hayden going up Col de Grand Ferret.
Yep.
And I was like, that's not like, I don't like that, you know.
It's unacceptable.
I was literally like, it's unacceptable. And which is great because eventually I like get his course record at Black Canyon, which is like, ties it up in a bow.
I don't know if you saw this, but at Tarawera, we talked about you a little bit too. He said that he sent you a message after Black Canyon. Just saying,
he's a good dude. We obviously like I haven't interacted with a ton, him being in Utah and me being here, but went, had some fun runs out in Europe this past summer. Good dude. But so that was the impetus, and I was like, I got to change something. So I just like, I'm a big student of the sport and of track running particularly. And so I was looking at what like the Norwegians were doing, like Jakob Ingebrigtsen stuff there, looking at what OAC was doing just down the street, kind of looking at that. And then I looked at a lot of what Katie was doing and people were doing under the coop training. And I was just kind of like, I can't do what Katie's doing. That's a lot of mileage. I'd probably get injured. I can't like do all this speed, nor do I think I need all this speed that like On Athletic Club's doing. So it was just kind of like combining things to where I kind of landed on this like idea where like for 2 months I was just going to like focus on getting fitter. Because sometimes in running you can be like, me and Eli were talking about this a few weeks ago, whereas like you can be getting better at running and not necessarily getting fitter. It's like this weird, maybe your like mechanics are better or something. And so I just like focused on just like getting as fit as possible, doing a lot of like pure threshold work on the treadmill. Cause I was doing it after work and it was icy and snowy. I don't choose the treadmill on purpose ever. But just like focus on that for two months and try to be like as fit as possible. So hopefully I can like keep up with Hayden at Col de Grand Ferret someday.
So you did like 10 or 15 minute threshold intervals? Yeah.
Like the bread and butter one, which I ripped this off from OAC Europe actually, was a 4 by 8 minute threshold.
Yeah.
Just like super easy. Like none of my training was like interesting. Like none of my training was like, and I think this is like maybe a huge learning thing for me, and hopefully other people can learn something from this, is like nothing I did was impressive the entire time.
Yeah.
Like the only thing impressive was the consistency at which I did it.
Yeah. Because that's what the boys are saying, that like almost you took a more conservative approach to training.
Yeah. I took a more conservative approach, and it was like, and like, I guess looking at ultras, it's like, it's cool to run. It's cool to like do workouts at sub 5 minute pace. Like that looks cool, but like, is that as relevant as doing 10 miles of work at 5:15 pace? You know, it's like, no, I'd rather be able to run 10 miles at 5:15 pace and feel good after than like knock out some fast sub 5 minute miles and be cooked, you know? So that was just kind of the approach. Like everything was conservative. Everything was very measured. And that was, honestly, it was huge because I didn't get injured once. I like felt the entire time I was on top of my training. Like I never felt like I was like, whoa, that one was a little hard. And then towards the end, the last like 6 weeks before Black Canyon, I actually like sort of flip-flopped it a bit and was like focused more on volume and doing like long runs. I was doing a hard run, like a workout the night before I do a long run. And then I do like easy runs on days I worked, and just like kind of real polarized training from there. And I think it, like, again, like nothing I did was crazy. Like it eventually started to look crazy because I think I was in really good shape. Like I think there's some long runs or some workouts that like Matt would be like, whoa, dude, I can't believe you did that. And I'd be like, oh, like I didn't realize that was because I just kind of like slowly got fitter. It was like I was started to do things that were a little bit more impressive on the outside, but I just like, I don't know. I just think too much. And another thing that frustrated me, I think, and I could talk about this forever, so you can stop me whenever you want. The third thing that frustrates me is like, I don't see a lot of trail runners building for the course of like again, like
say more. Yeah. Explain what you mean.
Like On Athletic Club down the street, like most of them are on Strava. Most track guys, like I follow very closely, and it's like these very high performing track runners and road runners build super slowly over the course of 3 months, just like building. Everything's manageable. Like your workouts are getting longer, not necessarily faster. They start to get faster. It's like very thorough. And then you start doing race specific stuff. And I just so often for myself and what I've seen for a lot of trail runners is like, it's like, oh, got to go train for Black Canyon. So now I'm doing specific stuff immediately. And I'm like doing these hero workouts, 3 months out. And it's like, that's cool. But like what I experienced and sort of where I got that idea was like, or how I trained was like, if I can build slowly, like I'll be doing hero workouts. They won't feel heroic and it'll be at the right time. And I guess that that's how it worked out. So
super interesting.
Yeah.
That OAC crew is the one that's coached by Dathan Ritzenheim, right?
Yeah. Obviously.
And they've been, the proof is in the pudding, so to speak, right? They've been putting together
100%.
some serious results. I mean, they're among the most elite track clubs out there right now, right?
So good. Yeah. Probably the most elite and most dialed, I guess.
Yeah. They in some way inspired the pod too. Maybe we'll talk about that
100%.
later, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
cool. Yeah.
All right. Before we get to Black Cane, I want to ask you about something weird. And that is that a couple of your homies mentioned your spiritual life and that it's important to you and that you don't talk about it often, but that in some way it influences like your approach to the sport. The reason I want to ask you this, Seth, is specifically a couple of days ago, you know this because we had to reschedule our podcast. I had to fly to Chicago for a memorial for my grandmother. So just a couple of days ago, I was in this Catholic church in Chicago where you could just feel spirit in there, and I have to say, like, I've never been, like a super religious person, but as I get older, I have a much deeper appreciation for what, having a spiritual life brings into, just your quality of life. So with that as your prompt, I'd love for you to share a little bit about that if you're open to it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I grew up in like a church environment. And yeah, it's just something that I guess stuck with me. I guess still to this day, it's like, I don't know how to like, it's tough to describe, but I feel like at the root level, it is so, I guess, like comforting and peaceful to know like that, in the grand scheme of everything, like maybe like a race result or some hard time you're going through is like much like I don't know, like I guess being spiritual is realizing that there's like so much more than what you're seeing. And even if like I feel like sometimes even if you don't really understand it, it's like there's more to it there, and that gives it like a lot of hope. And I think like, I'm not really sure how it comes out to like the guys and stuff from my end, but I definitely feel like my outlook on life and like hard times and good times and stuff is like impacted in a positive way by like my spirituality, I guess. And like, I feel like hope and just peace are like the two things that I feel like it gives me the most. And that doesn't mean like I'm like peaceful all the time or at peace all the time or hopeful all the time. Like I'm probably a pessimist by nature, but it's like
me too.
comforting, I think. So it's interesting. And I guess I don't really talk about it too much, but
well, thanks for sharing it a little bit. I mean, I can totally like see the value in that. And it actually reminds me, I don't know if you ever saw this, but we talked about Zach Miller earlier in the show, and he's spoken a lot publicly, I think even on this show, about his, spiritual life. And I remember that moment in 2016 when he was at the front of UTMB coming through Courmayeur, and he fell going up or down the stairs in the gym in Courmayeur while he was in the lead, of course, racing in classic Zach Miller style, just absolutely freaking gas pedal to the floor 50 miles into the race. And I think it was an Iron Far update, and there was a video of him falling at the front. And he said to the people in there, "Pray for me." And it's like such a goosebumps thing. Even just remembering it now, I'm like, holy shit. Like, the fact that he had like that at the front of his mind of like, I need you guys to pray for me right now. And of course, that was the year that he ended up running in the lead to like mile 85 and then fading back to, I think it was fifth or sixth. Anyway, it was very interesting. And I think I
don't think I've seen that video.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if I can dig it up. I think it was an Iron Far update. So I think it'll be very hard to find because it was 2016 UTMB, but like, I still remember it. Okay. Like there's like a, that's I don't know, just like a visceral, I don't know. Like I said, it gives me chills just thinking about it. Like Zach Miller, just like, pray for me. Like I'm in the lead here. He'd been chasing it, trying to get that victory and ultimately was unsuccessful. But I think it says something about him again, just like, it's not always under your control, and just like having that part of your life, it does probably just keep things in perspective in a lot of ways. So before we move off this, Matt Daniels mentioned that before Black Canyon that you guys had talked about some scripture that you had seen or something like that. Yeah. So before we talk about the race itself, is there something there that would be fun to share with the audience?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact scripture. Like I don't have a good memory of things like that, but it was something about like, your hard work will pay off or something like that. Like I think the last like sentence in it. And, it was just like, I was like, cool. Like, I just felt comforted in the fact of like, cause I think trail running or racing in general, we train so hard and you never know if it's enough. And like, I feel like that verse, I was just like, oh, like I'll be rewarded proportionally to like how hard I worked, Yeah. And I felt like I was hoping that was a win, but obviously like it could have been anything, but it's like, it just gave me like this, cause I was like super nervous before Black Canyon. It just gave me this like piece of like, you worked really hard and like, it's gonna unfold, like accordingly. So
awesome.
And I guess I worked hard enough that it
hell yes win, you did. All right, so we got to talk about that now. So I was out there, as I said, chasing with your camera, and I got to see it at all the crew access points. You were just behind Makai Clemens and Eli Hemming leaving Bumblebee, but just within contact effectively. And then I saw you next at Deep Canyon, and it was you, Eli, and Will Murray, who was one of the stories of the day, coming into 50K basically together. So I'd love for you to just, for the audience, just kind of describe the dynamic in the pack, like through that halfway point. And, you obviously were in the mix. So kind of like where your psychology was at.
Yeah. I mean, the dynamics are always interesting, in these races, cause they're so long. Like I'm really chatty in races and in generally just running. So I'm like trying to chat up Eli, and like, I'd never met Makai. So I was like trying to, figure out where he's from, all this stuff. But I guess the dynamics were like, one, I didn't know we were running that fast. Like, I didn't know we were on course record pace at all. I think you told me we were on course record pace actually at 50K. And that's when I was like, whoa, like we're like way under the course record. But, the dynamic was such that like, I felt like, like I felt very calm myself and very like focused on taking care of myself through that race. And I think, early on in the race, like 12 miles in, I already like stopped to cool off, dunked my hat in some cold water, refilled the bottle, and like the group I was with just kept going. And I remember just being like, ooh, like I think they made a mistake there, cause I've done this race before. I finished 6th in 2022, and it was like similar temperature year, and I like cooked, I like baked and like almost died, I felt. So, I was like, I think they made a mistake. And then coming through Bumblebee again, like I had like all the boys were out there. I had such a good crew. They're like, there's no way Drew's letting me leave that aid station without an ice bandana. It's like, Drew knows a thing or two about heat, and it's like, I wasn't getting out of there unless I had the proper cooling techniques. And so like, Bumblebee, when you saw me there, I was like a little behind Makai and Eli, but it was only because I had like taken the time to like get an ice bandana. And actually there was a weird dynamic where like Eli and Makai would speed up through crew spots, which I thought was like kind of,
dude, those aid station transitions though, I mean, those are such critical moments in the races now too.
They are critical. It's just, I like don't feel the need to like speed up in that like zone,
Right.
I'm like, we're already running pretty fast. Like, I don't know. So when I came out of Bumblebee, I was like full ice bandana, like, bottles, everything. I think I'd been dunked with water, and I think Will might've been like on me at that time. I think that's when like I first recognized, I didn't know who he was, but I recognized there was somebody I had no idea who they were. Behind me. and I look up and I see that like Makai and Eli don't have an ice bandana. And I was like, oh, I think that's another mistake.
Yeah.
I think that's one more mistake. And I caught back up to them and it was already hot. Like, I think I've said to you, I was like,
yeah, you did say to me.
You were like, it's a nice day out. And I was like, I think people are getting tricked by it though.
Yeah.
Because, well, like chilling, it was probably felt perfect, but running, I was already hot.
Well, and then when you guys were leaving Deep Canyon, you and Drew Holman, who was pacing you were talking to him about like, yeah, like Eli's not hydrating. He's not cooling. Like, I think he's making a mistake.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, there's probably like two ways to be Eli. Yeah. And one of them is to be fitter than him, which I'm not.
Hard to do.
Very hard to do. Not many people are. And the second is to like hope he makes a mistake.
Yeah.
And so it was very much like this thing. Yeah. Coming out of the 50K aid, it was like, I had seen him miss a bunch of bottle refills. And, obviously 50K was the first time he had started cooling off, like with an ice bandana. And it was like hot at that point.
Yeah.
Like I was cooking, I was like warm and I had the ice bandana and he like put in a big move after 50K.
Right.
And it was like, I think that's when I saw you and I picked up Drew and Drew's like, we got him right where we want him. It's fine. And I was like, man, I'm just going to be like real patient because I think he's made enough.
Dude, that's so fascinating. It's so fun to hear you talk about this too, dude, because like, yeah, at that moment, you guys came in together, and then Eli left before you. So he made a big move, a quick aid station transition, and then he puts in a move. So basically, you at that point do have one of two decisions to make. Do I get back on his wheel as you had been, running together for the stretch leading into Deep Canyon, or do you bank on the fact that he's screwing up and run your own race?
Yeah, I mean, well, two things like. You or I don't know. I think it was you. Might have been like you guys are way up on course record pace, and that was one thing. I was like, and I told Drew this when he picked me up. I was like, if he holds on, it's like that's Eli. Like,
right?
Eli's like one of the best. He might hold on, but like I'm gonna bet that doesn't happen. And so I was like, I can't bet on myself to make a move with him because he's obviously feeling good. I feel good, but like. I'm not keeping up with Eli if he feels good. Yeah. So it's like, I just have to bet on him, like or bet on him kind of like, faltering later in the race. And then the other thing is I texted Hayden and he was like, the race doesn't start till the last 40K. And I was like, well, we're like 10Ks from the last 40K. So I'm just like, be patient. It was like, I feel like it was like not in that moment. It was not a hard decision. I think it was I liked the odds there.
Cool.
I thought, the odds I didn't know, which I think there's a term for this in betting. I don't know what it is, but the odds I didn't know about was Will Murray being so good because I had met him. So like, I got to give him a little shout out. I had met him like mile 25, maybe 26. Yeah. And I was like, what's your name? And he's like, I'm Will. And I was like, I don't recognize that one. Like, And I was like, where are you from? He's like, New Jersey. And I was like, oh, like he's in over his head. Like, not going to happen. And then we get talking. He's like, grew up in Atlanta, real close to Chattanooga, actually. Yeah. I was like, so like, I guess like I saw him again at 60K. I saw him again. There's a little out and back section. Saw him again. I was like, man, he looks good. Like, Will guy's like,
dude, he was awesome. So. He was awesome. It's funny now that you bring this up, I think the audience would like to hear this. And I don't know if you know it yourself. So when you guys, so Eli left in the front, like you said, he had like one bottle in his hand, maybe one bottle in his belt. You were iced down. You had your bottles. Will left. He had 2 bottles in his vest, 2 bottles in his hand, and then like a liter, like a plastic bottle, like a plastic liter bottle stuffed in the back of his pack. No way. So he had like 2.5 liters of water on him. And I was like, this kid he knows what he's doing. But you probably don't remember this.
No, I had no idea. That's crazy.
Yeah. Cause I did the same thing when I was chasing you guys into the aid station with the camera. I was like, what's your name, dude? He's like, Will. I'm like, where are you from? He's like, New Jersey. I'm like, dude, you are freaking at the front of Black Canyon with Eli and Seth. It's funny. He and I have had a fun email exchange here after the fact. He's like, philosophically not online, doesn't have an Instagram account.
No way. Okay,
what a great story. Yeah. Anyway. Cool kid. So picking the story back up, you left with Drew, and I talked to Drew about this, but he basically said pacing Seth at Black Canyon was the top 5 athletic experience for Drew. And the thing that was cool about it is like you, Eli, and Will were like not separated by much coming through Table Mesa. And so the way that Black Canyon is trending now is like it's hard to gain a gap anywhere. And psychologically, that's got to be hard because like even though you're recognizing that Eli is maybe not racing as tactically as he could or making mistakes, it's not like you blew him off the back immediately either, right? It took a little bit to shake him, like until the last 10 miles or so. So psychologically, just bring us into that too, because like, the consequences, the implications of winning Black Canyon, along with the golden ticket, it also is the biggest performance of your career. And so like, you're probably, have some of that stuff going through your mind in real time.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so funny. Like I look back at it now and see the time gaps and it makes me nervous. Yeah. But in the race, I don't think I didn't have the awareness or like either that or I was just so zapped that like I did not think about the time gaps being scary. Like it was so funny. Like, I mean, Will like is some dude that is a guy that like he very nearly got me at the end of that race. Like he was chasing me down.
Dude,
like,
he was flying out of Table Mesa.
I think the like beauty for me was like, I didn't know that. Like I kind of had like, again, like I was like some guy from New Jersey, like I'd written him off. So I was like, never going to see him again. And Eli, when I ended up passing Eli, like a few miles before Table Mesa, before that 50-mile crew spot, he was moving so slowly that I passed him and I was like, cool, like I'm going to win this thing. Yeah. And so like in the moment, it was like, I didn't really think about the fact that like somebody could be catching me. And the only time I thought about that is I like had a pretty low moment where I like threw up a couple times and was like super low on energy. And I picked up Matt at the crew spot, like after downing 2 Cokes, like figuring out the nutrition thing. And I had a moment where I was running like really slow. Like I was running like slower than I wanted to be out of that aid station, like feeling pretty rough. And Matt was just like, this was the first time I had heard that people were close to me. And he was like, hey, like there's a couple guys charging really hard. And I was like, oh boy. And I start like trying to run. And then my calf starts cramping and I'm like, what's going on? And I was like, trying not to mention it to Matt because I was trying not to think about it myself. Yeah. And then at some point I'm like, man, I like can't really push off my right foot. And he looks down and I have like this massive thorn cactus thing in my calf. Like it's bleeding. And he's like, well, you got some there. And I like pull it out and it's like immediately I was like, oh, like
then the Seth stride comes back.
Came back and I like felt good and I like knew at some point that I was like, I'm not going to let somebody catch me. Yeah. But again, like you're saying, like it's if I had one slip up, like if that race is so competitive, like if I hadn't gotten one ice bandana at some point, or if I had missed a bottle, or if like for some reason after vomiting, like I couldn't have, like if I could have, if I hadn't been able to take anything, like carbohydrates after vomiting, like I would have been toast. I would have been out. I would have been like 5th or 6th.
Like 5th, yeah.
Yeah. So
awesome.
Like, Eli to look so rough with 15 miles to go and to still run 7:30.
This is a tough mofo. Yeah.
Crazy. That was like insane. Yeah.
I want to ask you about something. When I chased you guys out of the aid station at Table Mesa with the camera, again, as you mentioned, Matt Daniels was your pacer at that point, and he made a comment, something about Cole Hawker. So this is a callback to earlier in our conversation, you two being the like hardcore track boys. He dropped a Cole Hawker reference on you to motivate you at the end.
Oh man. Yeah. I was, ever since he won gold. I mean, I've always been a fan of Cole Hawker, but when he won gold, it was like, and he has like YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And it's just these like, him and his training group are just like blue collar dudes, like training like, they train really hard, like professionals, but it's got like a college vibe to it. And I was like, man, like that's my vibe, like the blue collar, like champion. And
love it.
I think earlier in the day I was talking to Drew, and I was like, man, like I think I might be able to finish in time to watch Milrose games, which was coming on at 2, but I knew the 3K was like at like 2:45. And I was like, if I run under 7.5 hours, I can watch the 3K. And Cole Hawker was in that 3K. And I kind of we were talking about it, and then get to Matt, and Matt's just like, dude, like, remember when Cole Hawker like won gold and nobody thought it? Like if he can do that, like you can hold on for this ticket. And
yeah, what he was saying was like, cause I talked to him about this. I got Matt's perspective on that quote too. And he was like, in that race, wasn't it Ingebrigtsen and Josh Kerr or something who were like the favorites? And you said something like, and then Cole Hawker comes through with like the dad bod and the ponytail, the blue collar guy, and he wins the gold medal in freaking Paris.
It was like, oh man. And like the whole thing, like no one talked about Cole Hawker until like, they're like, oh, like he's catching and passing these guys. So
that was so
and
cool.
There was another thing about that race that I feel like was super motivating is if you watch it, Cole Hawker passes Josh Kerr, like comes up alongside Josh Kerr. Josh Kerr like matches that speed, and then Cole Hawker just is like gives like 3 hard steps. And like gets a gap. And like the whole, I guess like something that I had thought about is like you always have some more hard steps when you think you're gone. You always have something
3
else there.
hard steps, dude. I love that.
And actually like
you got to put that on some Boulder Boys merch.
Oh, we
3 hard steps.
Honestly, I think it was a pod with you that coined the phrase Boulder Boys. So
hell yes.
I think we can get some merch out, but with a quote from a free show.
We got to do the merch swap like we talked about. It's like, when the soccer players exchange jerseys, we'll do that.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, it was cool. Like it was super motivating, and I like felt it. Like I like believed it too, which was not always the case. So
3 hard steps, bro. All right, so you break the tape, golden ticket, course record, monster victory. Like you won the maxi race, but this is, to me, feels like the biggest win of your career. Maybe just, if there was any fun, like maybe you could tell us a little bit about the text exchange with Hayden Hawks, whose course record you broke, just like what it was like in the immediate aftermath celebrating this awesome victory.
I mean, like the course record is like winning that race was a huge goal. Getting a golden ticket was like a huge secondary goal for me there. And then like the course record was like the pipe dream goal,
Yeah.
It's like, man, like I don't know. Cause we were out there last year. I think, when Hayden ran 7:30 or 7:29, or I can't remember exactly the time, but when he ran that, me and Matt and Adam were like, what just happened? Like that was crazy. And so like, I remember that performance as being so good. And that was like, Hayden's so good. Like he's world-class. Right. And like, I feel like sort of back to earlier, like I just always like want to measure myself and like maybe be world-class one day. And so then to finish and like get his course record, like honestly, not even by that much. Like people are like, oh, you got it by a lot, like 5 minutes. It's like, that's like not that much in the grand scheme of 7.5 hours. But it's like to get that course record felt like I had arrived. Like it felt like I was like, oh, like maybe I can be world class too.
Hell
and that is such a nice feeling, to be honest. Like it's such a nice, because I feel like maxi race, there was like an element in that day where like I was like, oh no, like I'm world class today. And there was like elements. I went back and looked at those results getting ready for this.
It was Aurelien Denard-Palaz was second place. You were 30 minutes in front of him. That dude's a stud.
I do feel like that race gets, because it's maxi race, it's not one of these big races. Like, I do feel like it maybe didn't get the attention that I felt like it felt like I put out a performance that was better than maybe it was received. But man, so after the race, it was just like, I was stoked. Like, I was like, I've like done something that is like the best race of my career and validating, and I felt so relaxed. It was so nice. I don't know. Yeah, just stoked and like
stoked. At peace.
Love it.
At peace.
Like at peace. Like,
it's funny, that phrase came up. I talked to Riley recently too, and that phrase came up with them too in the pod. So this will be a fun overlap for the audience to enjoy. All right. So obviously you're in at Western States. You got 4 months, you're getting the illness out of the way now so you can get back to work and start building, like you said, with your training. So maybe give the audience a sense of how you're thinking about these next 4 months, how you might orient yourself towards this monster goal.
Yeah. I think just a lot of what I was doing for Black Canyon, building. I'll start a little higher up. Like, I won't build from zero. I took a lot of time off last September actually. Like it's interesting because I feel like I whatever I did for Black Canyon, I felt like was very good. And so I'm like, kind of like, okay, like, can I do the exact same thing? And then like, obviously there's always room to improve. Like, I don't want it to be the exact same thing. And like, so maybe tweak it a little bit, but I don't know. Like, it's funny because you get because I ran slightly faster than Hayden did, and he got third last year. Like, my mind goes to like, oh, like maybe I can be up there. But then like the other side of me is just like, dude, like, it's your first Western States. Like, don't put the pressure on yourself. Like, I don't feel like I need to be in that conversation, nor do I want to be in that conversation.
Hey, what did that cyclist say though? It's a privilege to have the opportunity to race or something like that.
All I ever wanted was
an opportunity to race.
Yeah. So, and that's
perfect.
That's how I'm looking at it, is like, I want to go, obviously like you go podium that race. It's huge. You go, people are talking about sub 14 hours and stuff. And it's like, I'm not going to call that shot. I just want to go out there and race. And I think, in doing that, it's like Black Canyon was such a big performance for me. And if I can pull something together for Western States, it'll be crazy. But like, that's not the expectation for people's first. And it's like you're saying, like, I'm going to go out there and race. I'm going to compete. Like, I'll be at the front, ish.
Let's
obviously.
Go.
I don't know. I mean, it's easy to be at the front for a little bit in a 100-miler, but I'm not going to like sit back and hope people fade, because that just doesn't happen these days. So, I'm stoked. I am racing Canyons 50K, en route to that. And I think, I still just want to race and compete. Like, I look at that 50K and it's like, sure, it's not the main goal, but
it's a baller lineup. I went because you and I talked about this at dinner after your win. And so I went and looked at the elite start list for the Canyons 50K. It's baller. It's crazy. Yeah. And I just like every opportunity, it's like, I want to race. Like, I'm not going to like have an excuse of like, that 50K is not my A race. Like, sure, I'll maybe train through it a little different, but I'm just excited to race a 50K. I'm excited to go experience Western States and hopefully have the same crew. I know some of the boys are trying, like, racing Canyons 100K, so maybe they get a ticket and then we'll have to fight over who is crewing who. But we'll see how that goes. But dude, I'm just excited. Like, I love spring and summer for training, and I like honestly just can't wait to get back at it. Hell yeah, dude. All right. Well, we have to talk about the podcast before we sign off here. But first, I heard also that you're doing the Leadville 100 mountain bike race at the end of the summer. So tell the audience about that. I'm sure they get a kick out of it. That was huge. So actually my buddy, Dylan, who was at dinner after Black Canyon, he actually produced the content Oh, cool.
That's on the Boulder Boys account, but I used to ride by, he's like my best friend he's the best man at my wedding, like best friend, from Chattanooga. And he is a good cyclist. And like last fall, he was like, yo, I'm going to sign up for the lottery. And I was like, oh, well, I'll sign up for the lottery too. And like, if you don't get in and I get in, I'll give it to you. But if we both get in, that'll be sick. And we both get into the lottery. And then all that like was the thing. I was like, there's no way I'm not getting a golden ticket, because like, you know how the pro trail running cycle works. It's like, if you're not in states, you have to do
UTMB. Yeah.
You have to be there at UTMB in August, and therefore you're not able to race the mountain bike race. So I was like, I have to get into Western states so that I can do this mountain bike race. And it worked out. So yeah, I don't know how I'm going to train for it. I don't actually own a mountain bike right now. So I'm sure we can sort that out between now and then, but yeah, it'll be so fun. And like,
just hit up your favorite brand on Instagram and just, give them some free ad space on the Boulder Boys podcast and see if they might style you out with a new rig.
I would love that. And that's probably offline conversation, but I would love a bike sponsor. Cool.
I don't know. To me, it feels like, sometimes in life, like the universe has your back. And it feels like that maybe in your case too, starting the season with this massive win and then kind of getting into this lottery, which I think it's not quite like getting into the Western States lottery, but it's not like a foregone conclusion that you're going to get in, right? It's like unlikely. Yeah. Put your name in that hat.
I felt bad because the amount of people that were posting on Instagram, like I posted on Instagram, like racing they send you like a little thing you can post, say you're racing. And, I did that. And the amount of people that were like, dang, this is my 8th try and I haven't gotten in. I was like, I feel so bad. Like I'm just some dude who doesn't actually ride mountain bikes, and I got in, but got to take the wins where you can, I guess.
Exactly.
So I think it's easier than Western States, but it's still a lot of people want to do that race, and it's limited.
Just what a fun storyline to the year too. Now you can just go like really put your best effort into Western States, which will be your 100-mile debut on a huge stage. And whether it goes good or bad, you can always just like have a end of summer celebration with a fun bike race that'll also be kind of a bucket list opportunity. And whatever that cyclist said, right? All I want is an opportunity. So you're going to get yours this year, which is going to be great. So we got to talk about the pod before we sign off. And
all right,
Adam Mary, your boy, said that the inside joke is that you're the CEO of the show, and then you're sort of like the initiating energy of the Boulder Boys. So talk about the inspiration for the show. I know, people who listen to your show will know this, but like for those who are unfamiliar, talk about the inspiration for the show and just sort of what gave you that initiation energy behind it.
Yeah. Honestly, the inspiration is there's a couple guys on pro track guys that run for On Athletic Club, and they have a podcast. They call it the Coffee Club. Has nothing to do with coffee. It's all about running. But the thing that I love about the pod is like, I'm a fan of track, and you get to know these guys in a level that makes you're excited for their successes. You're sad about their disappointments, but also it just it makes me be like a more engaged fan in track. Like any race they're at, whether it's like a little race like on the East Coast or some small road mile in New Zealand or at the Olympics, I'm like very invested, and it elevates my experience with the entire sport. And I think something that I felt like we had the opportunity to do is to give that to trail fans and to help hopefully elevate the engagement in certain trail races. And I think obviously like there's media, like Free Trail or some of these other podcasts or, Outside Magazine or whatever that are the media that's like telling the story of the athletes and of the races and stuff. And that's like super vital. I feel like we were able to capitalize or like able to find an opportunity, or like how I viewed it, an opportunity to like give those same people who listen to Free Trail or Single Track or whatever, an opportunity to like hear it from the runner's perspective of like, and like maybe a little more little more candid because we're not like, we're nice, but we're not trying to like, we're not having to appease everybody, And I think, that was just the way I viewed it. And, actually Moy was super helpful because I had this idea for like a year, and I like just never thought, I was like, I don't know if any of the boys will like be down for it. And I was on a run with Moises, and he was like, I was like, man, it'd be fun to do something like that. He's like, dude, you should, like, why not? And then I like told Adam, and Adam was stoked, which I was like, I guess, like, I don't know. I didn't think the other boys would be so excited about it. Adam's like out here, like buying the microphone, telling us like what mixer to get. Like, he's so stoked. So
he's locked in, as we said, right?
He's locked in. Absolutely. So it's just like, and I feel like proud of it because I feel like we were able to build a community and a fan base that I think, and I hope like adds to the depth of trail running as a sport for people.
Totally. Yeah.
And I think, it's cool. Like I'm really proud of what we built with the Boulder Boys and the podcast. And it's not, it's not for everybody. Some people are like, oh, it's just like 4 dudes or 5 dudes bantering. It's like, but like some people love it, and it's cool. So
yeah. Well, it fills a hole, right? I mean, it is an awesome just dynamic that you guys have. I mean, it all starts with the friendship and the chemistry, right? And having you all engaging with the sport as professionals, and you're going through highs and lows at different times. Mm-hmm. And for you guys to be able to like talk about and document that journey is fun, for fans of sport. That's what people care about, and if I look at the stuff that I consume in other sports, it usually comes in that sort of like same, kind of category of content. The people who like have been through it, who know what the hell they're talking about. And, the conversation just ends up being a lot more valuable, a lot more rich with insight and honesty. And, especially, I don't know. I mean, you guys are sort of all in your primes right now. And it's like an exciting energy that the group has. And the fact that fans of yours, myself included, get a front row seat to that kind of stuff, it's super fun. So I'm glad to hear you guys are enjoying it.
It's cool. And it's, it definitely was, I think the coolest thing about trail running fans and the people who were fans of us as the Boulder Boys we like laid so many eggs last year. Like, we had such a bad year, and like they didn't care. They were still like, the fans are still fans. Like, it's like, it was like actually just beautiful. So like it adds a layer of excitement and again, like relief to having a good race. Is like, oh yeah, like, because I know what it's like. Like, I know what it's like to see one of the coffee club guys like win something. It's like, it's fun. It like just adds another layer. And
you're like, oh, I can't wait to listen to the show.
I can't wait to listen to the show. I'm buzzing for like 2 weeks because like they just won something. Like, it's like cool. So it's just been a fun thing. And like we've had ebbs and flows of motivation to do the pod. Like, I think we had like a full month and a half off in the middle of the summer last year, but
that's how you're a real podcaster, when the motivation comes and goes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you might know something about that.
I know the grind. Well, good for you, man. And I mean, you guys have built a really fun way for fans of trail running to engage in a different way, as you said, than, an outlet like Free Trail. And I don't know. I think we got to do like a home and home. I got to have all the boys on the show here. Yeah. And then I'll come on your guys' show, and then we do the merch swap. And then it's like, full on.
Next time you're in Boulder, next time you come to visit home,
come to the studio.
Come through the studio, aka Moy's dining room.
Yeah. All right, Seth, dude, what a freaking fun episode, man. It's so fun to just wrap out with you. And I know you got to get to a flight here later this afternoon to go do some big photo shoot this week, but I can't wait to share this one. And I close all these interviews with the same closing question for everybody, which is just, who is one person that you admire? Can be inside or outside of sport, living or dead. Why do you admire that person?
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously like I admire a lot of people. But the one that like sticks out and like I wouldn't be who I am today without him is a guy named Van Townsend. He was my coach in high school. Actually, he's the coach that was like, I don't know if you should be doing these 40-mile races in high school. He just like had such a passion for running. So he actually like, he's kind of an icon in the road running space, to be honest. He passed away from cancer, like right after I graduated high school. And when he passed away, he had like a homepage on letsrun.com. Like he was like the real deal, but it was like the coolest thing about him is he like had this crazy passion, motivation to like share his love for running with the youth, like with high schoolers, middle schoolers. So actually in Chattanooga, like I would train with him with like 4 or 5 of the other best runners in the area from other schools. And he coached all of us. Like it was like he saw people who were good and saw a gap in like the amount of attention that the runners were getting at certain schools, and was like, I'm there. Like I'll coach you. Like I'll help you. He like honestly was a guy that lined up for me to run in college. Like he lined up that scholarship. Like just an amazing dude. Just his passion and excitement and like stoked to help other people come up in the sport, and like just teaching kids at a young age like it's cool and okay to like care deeply about something.
I love it.
Yeah, he was great. His kids live here in Boulder. I don't see him as much as I should, but cool guy.
Van Townsend.
Yeah.
Shout out. This is why I love asking this question. Yeah. That's why I love asking this question. It's like, our listeners are probably making this connection themselves, but it reminds me of what we were talking about with Zach Miller earlier too, just like somebody who just like in the case of these high school kids in Tennessee, he's probably, it's doing it out of love and passion and just like without a self-interested motivation, in the same way that when Zach Miller sent you an unsolicited DM about, hey, can I help make you a professional athlete? It's something that in no way benefits Zach Miller's career. And, I think we can all aspire to doing things like that, give other people that opportunity. So
100%.
Amazing.
To that point, like just one more thing with Van, like he didn't charge any of us. Like he would show up to the track on like a Tuesday at 3 PM. It's like spend 4 hours with different groups and leave. And it's like, he just like, he committed his whole time, like just to, similar to Zach, like nothing in it for him, but
beautiful. Well, that's a good spirit to all take away from this conversation, and hopefully we can find ways to embody it in our own lives. Seth Ruhling, congratulations on that huge fucking victory at Black Canyon, man. You so deserved it. Thank you. I can't wait to listen to the content gold mine leading into Western States. It's going to be absolutely amazing over there on the Boulder Boys feed. And
it'll get wild, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I'll be at Canyons, so I'll see you there.
Sweet. Yeah. See you at Canyons.
All right, buddy.